We differ on what history teaches us. Is time a chaotic dance of coincidences and conflicts, or does civilization gradually progress toward an ordered ideal? But we agree that the past holds the answer to every question, so we must revive it and discover its truths. Welcome back, travelers, to Legendary Lore.
Legendary Lorehold.
Oh my gosh, that destroyed my ear, but that is a great bit. Wow, I think a blood vessel popped in my eye from how loud that was. But Joe is right. So the whole idea behind this one is archaeomancy. It's the Red-White College of Lorehold, and their whole deal is history, finding ways to learn more from the past. We're going to talk about the different kinds of mages that exist, because that's a really interesting thing to me. And so the red aspect are all about discovery, just going out there on an adventure and just like kind of just burrowing into the history of things with like emotion and power and just smashing things to get to where you need to go. Indiana Jones style, basically. Really, if I wasn't Silver Quill, I'd definitely be a red Lorehold. Because it fits really well. And then we have the different kinds of mages. We have cliff busters and ruined shamans, who their whole deal is basically just digging into ancient sites, the dig sites, and blasting away all the different material to get to the actual meat of what you're trying to find. Then you have some like, okay, these three names that are about to come up, Joe, fantastic names. I know I've said it for the other ones. They got some great names. They have the Chaos Scholars, Trivialists, and Absurdophiles. Oh my gosh, Joe, I want to be an Absurdophile so bad. I know it might sound bad, but I'm definitely an Absurdophile.
I know, Ricky.
The whole idea for them is to find the little anecdotes of history. They look for the weird little things. Like, for instance, the wine glass that people use, the fat one, is based off of the shape of, it's claimed by various kings to be the shape of their wife's chest, basically like sculpted around it. And like, obviously it's not true for any of those things, but that's something that pops up across history. Is like, kings will just take credit. They're like, yes, you see this very large drink that I'm drinking out of? Can you guess where I got the shape from? It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Besides the brilliance of the Absurdophile, we have warlords, not warlords. And their whole idea is like, war magic, it's the best. They're the war nut. They're the one who loves History Channel, specifically because it talks about World War II and I on repeat for the entirety of a week. Because there was a thing called the Blood Age, which was an age prior to the whole Strixhaven being like found like safe. The Blood Age, there was just these giant monsters, like these blood avatars, destroying everything. And
blood avatars.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Then you have Dust Speakers and Hero Scorns, and they talk to spirits basically about all their weaknesses. Which is why the Hero Scorn. The whole idea is like, you find out the worst part of a revered figure and reveal that about them. Dust Speaker, same idea. These people that don't have, like, just bringing up the dirt on them kind of thing. And
I like that.
Yeah. Then you have, possibly, if you were Lorehold, what I think you would be, Scroll Bashers and Tome Wielders. The Scroll Basher and Tome Wielder use summoning magic to bring characters that were in a page to life. And if that doesn't work, like say they don't have time, they'll literally use their heavy tomes as weapons.
I would undoubtedly be that if I wasn't a Witherbloom mage.
Their whole deal is literally like, okay, I'm going to summon this great and powerful, oh, you're too close, whack.
Give me a second, I gotta change my Discord name from Hero of Determination to Tome Basher of Determination.
Okay, and so those are all the red mages, and there's like, obviously they're great. I love them. Then you have the white ones, the antiquarians, the truth finders, and the archaeoscribes. And obviously they're not as bombastic as the red side of things. So their whole deal is more about like preserving scrolls, uncovering the truth, stuff like that. They're very
less fun stuff.
they're chroniclers. They're making sure that everything is like saved for posterity's sake. Which,
like Takua, he's the one that becomes the Bionicle of Light.
oh
Takua the
yeah,
chronicler.
nice. Okay.
Which the Bionicle fit into this school too, so that actually was a relevant reference.
Yeah, that Bionicles do make sense in this school. Relic readers, Aeon Mancers, and Monument Priests. Their whole deal is referring to statues and basically just historical figures, trying to gain wisdom specifically from like looking at the past and the context of how the ruins were set up and stuff like that. Basically like a sociology kind of deal, trying to figure out, okay, how did these people live, stuff like that. Why is this statue designed the way it is? What is it trying to evoke specifically? Things like that. Then you have iconologists, past raisers, and ghost advocates. And the way they work is one of the ways that you're able to summon these spirits, which we'll get to more in the spirits, is by finding a statue that looks like them and then summoning the spirit to inhabit the statue.
I love that.
So if you don't have the proper like statue for something, you can't call that person forward, which is why it's so important to have these sites preserved. Because if you find like say it's a statue of some historical figure that's like from legends, then you can actually get that person to show up and you can talk to them and learn more about what their deal is, which is just a really cool idea to me, because you don't really see that in as far as necromancy is concerned in general, you don't really see that kind of thing pop up. And especially with that kind of restriction on the magic itself. I love that. Then you have battle mediums and spiritualists, and they just use the spirits for battle. Kind of like the red side of things, like the warlords, but instead of learning about like the ancient magics, theirs is more about these ancient warriors. Mm-hmm. Then you have conservators, past quoters, docents, and curators. And their whole idea is to preserve ancient spells, ancient artifacts, ancient knowledge, ancient relics, stuff like that. And they'll be the ones grading things and making sure that they're preserved properly. They're the ones wearing gloves and stuff like that. But this is magic, so they can fix that stuff up that way anyways.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then you have honor bringers and illusionists, which I feel really should have been a silver quill name for illusions. Because that's
illusions with an A, not with an I.
Exactly. That's what I would describe as a fire name, and I do not understand why they would do that, because the whole idea with this one is drawing on the truth of history to enhance, inspire, or empower allies. Then you have rule citers and canonists, which enforce ancient magic laws. But yeah, an illusionist, that's such a good name. That needs to be used on like every card. That needs to be used a lot, because like, think about it, it's literally just a magician who uses references.
That's you.
I would be such a good illusionist, Joe.
That's the boss watch, actually.
Yeah, we're the illusionists. So we were talking about spirits earlier, and for some of these different magician types, and I kind of already explained it, but these are the mascots they use. So they'll find statues and then they'll reconstitute into these basically full-bodied spirits that draw on these abilities. And they can be used as like basically mentors, or they can be used as soldiers and defenders if the need arises. And so like while Silver Quill will be throwing like ink and stuff like that, the Lorehold, when they're fighting, would use these spirits as their to like fight for them, as opposed to throwing fire and stuff like that, like the Prismari would. So it's just showing how they use their magic more in this manner than in others. The Kalema Hall, Kalema being a ancient Loxodon that was in the Lorehold. He like ran it for a while. It's a giant gallery. It's got 1,000-foot-long scrolls spilling over balconies, and everyone's just reading from these different kinds of text. There's a giant statue of Kalema, who was one of the first Lorehold professors during the founding of Strixhaven. Stuff like that. Another area is called Pillar Drop. It is a series of buildings that are being excavated directly out of a sheer perpendicular cliff.
Interesting.
So there's these little bridges across the place that go from neighborhood to neighborhood. And there's just these giant stone statues that you can that overlook this cliffside. And people, they use it as like an area for teaching, for like classwork, housing, research. This area is like precariously perched. Here is like it's just a normal thing. It's crazy. And then of course you have the last area, which I think is a fantastic idea. Once again, it's called Effigy Row. Kind of like the Opus Walk. The Effigy Row, the whole idea is that it is just a pathway with a ton of monuments to historical figures. So there's like past professors, students, war heroes, kings, warlord, like everyone is here in statue form, and students can go up and they can raise the spirit basically to inhabit the statue and talk to it. Lorehold students get their first mentor by being assigned one of these statues to go talk to and learn from them as much as they can for their project. You may have noticed there was a sense of the red side of things, very chaotic, kind of haphazard in the way, while the white side has a very strong sense of order and wants to preserve things, right? Plargg, the Dean of Chaos.
Why does he sound like a character from Invader Zim?
I am Plargg.
I am Plargg!
So Plargg is a blind...
The Dean of Chaos!
It's not bad. Plargg is a blind orc. And his whole deal is military history, obviously. And he has his students try to remember tons of things perfectly. And he invented a thing. This is really cool, because remember, he's a blind professor. He created a thing called heat lettering, where he can cause the parchment that he is reading to have raised symbols. The letters are raised so that he can read the texts despite being blind. Obviously, this is not the same as the real world. So there are certain things that we take for granted or don't really think about that would not exist in this world. And he just created Braille.
It's really cool.
And so he believes specifically that the history is just full of unpredictable war and chaos, and that his students need to be ready for literally anything to get thrown at them. And so another thing he teaches, no reward without risk. And he, despite being blind, will go out on adventures himself with like a field trip kind of thing, and wind up sending all of his students to the nurse's office because they wind up in some terrible event because of it. But he is the Dean of Chaos.
Oh, so he's All Might.
Then you have Augusta. She is the Dean of Order, and the one side of the duo you will never use. And she's the past raiser. So her whole deal is she's able to like raise spirits and put them in the statue.
I mean, she seems like fun for like a white weenie deck.
But more importantly, she believes you can use the mistakes of the past to inform the choices of the present. So she thinks of things as having a cause and effect order kind of deal. So if you can learn from the past, you can avoid making the same mistakes. And so she's very strict, very by the book. And whenever anyone goes on a field trip with Dean Plargg, she thinks that they made a terrible decision and is very disappointed in them. The best of students, the best boy, the undefeated Quintorius Cand. Cand is his last name, by the way. He's a little elephant, short and stout. And he has Dean Plargg as his the one who's like in charge over him kind of thing.
Oh my
And
goodness.
he was rejected from a military academy, from like the Luxodon military academy, since he was considered to be useless.
Oh wait, so there are other schools on Strixhaven or on
Arcavios?
Arcavios?
Arcavios is a massive plane, and Strixhaven is a university. You can go to other places and do other things. This is specifically for people who are like seeking the higher arts of magic making things. And
that's why it's what we're visiting. But we may explore more of Arcavios later, or have a crossover with Strixhaven. Just like, okay, school thingy.
Yeah, I could definitely see another set called Arcavios that just talks about the stuff that happens around Strixhaven. You'd still have the Strixhaven characters and stuff like that, but it would be in a different context.
With how big these planes are, though, like Dominaria, Arcavios, Ixalan, what you're telling me is Ravnica is literally the smallest place you've ever visited.
Not so much that, it's the most homogenous because it's all city. There's nothing else. It could be a smaller plane, but it's also just the fact that they've developed everything, so there's no room for anything to be unique
They
in
keep
Ravnica.
all their civilization tight knit.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, what's beyond the city? The forest. That's where the Gruul are. What's beyond the Gruul? Nothing.
It's a city. It's just more city. Basically, the Gruul live in Central Park. So Quintorius gets kicked out of the military academy because he's a klutz, and when he was about to get beat by 3 bigger students, those 3 bigger students wound up getting just smashed, and they were like you cheated in your fight with these thugs, so you're dishonorable. We're gonna go ahead and kick you out. It just turns out he has the ability to like move things. He has like a form of telekinesis kind of thing. He just kind of wiggles his clumsiness towards those other things. He's basically Dumbo. We'll get to learn a lot more about him when we get to to his story.
I'm eager to see him now. Yeah.
Now we have a professor, Hofri Ghostforge. Hofri is a dwarf. He's an exceptional dwarf. So Joe, as you may remember, the whole problem behind the Lorehold is trying to raise spirits is that you need a statue that looks like them.
Strong May, let it go on.
So the whole idea is that if you need a statue, then if someone existed and they no longer have a statue that is like complete or at least partially complete, then their perspective is lost forever. Hofri came along and he joined the Prismari. He was originally going to be a Prismari dwarf. And his whole deal was that he was very good at crafting things like statues and stuff, but he could
I already
not,
see where this is going.
Yes, but he himself was not very good at like kind of like creating art. All of his stuff was very technically perfect, but none of it like struck awe into his people. And he was like, you know what? I'm leaving this. I'm gonna go ahead and try Lorehold. And it turns out that because of his abilities that he honed in Prismari of statue making, he could create constructs that were close enough for spirits to inhabit, even if they didn't have a statue.
That's so cool.
And basically, the fact, because like for his work, he basically created a spirit statue from scratch, and it was immediately offered a professorial position after graduation.
That's so cool.
Like he was so good at what he did that he immediately got a job as a professor.
I love him.
It's super cool. And it even makes sense with his card, because the whole idea behind his card is that whenever something dies, you exile it, and if you do, you create a token that's a copy of it. And then when that thing dies, you return the exiled card to the graveyard. So he creates a construct to represent that spirit of what just died on the field.
He's so cool.
Now we have a different kind of character. We have Osgir. Osgir he's funny because he's a giant and he loves trinkets. He loves artifacts, he loves relics, right? So he finds a jeweled crown. It's his, he wants it. He finds an ugly shovel that's kind of broken and might smell a little bit. He wants it, it's his, it's a treasure. Everything is a treasure to him, right?
Uh-huh.
And he would basically go to dig sites and he would take these items that are historical and important and belong to Lorehold, and he would take them and hide them. And people were kind of like, hey, look, I get that you appreciate the history of things, but you can't do that. And he would do that as a student, and he would get in trouble for it. And over time, he got the ability to start creating duplicative restoration, where they're perfect copies. And so he's able to create a copy of the artifact that he found, keep it, and then give the original to Lorehold so that he can keep his stuff. And so that's why his card depicts it: sack an artifact, pump something up. But more importantly, exile an artifact with a mana value X from your graveyard, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. So he finds a thing that's in the ground and it's kind of rusty and broken up. He restores it from the graveyard, and then he gets to keep one, and then he gives another one to the Lorehold.
That's amazing. Is he a professor?
He is now a professor. Losheel, the Clockwork Scholar, is a Luxodon, also known as an elephant. Losheel proudly admits that she's willing to work very hard in order to be as lazy as possible. Her whole deal is creating little constructs. She just keeps creating new and new ways to basically not have to do anything. And so
Nice.
that's why it says whenever one or more artifact creatures enters the battlefield, draw a card only once each turn. So she just kind of just sits there and she keeps making stuff. And every time an artifact comes in, she just gets more ideas and she gets more things. If you look at her artwork, she just has her chest has like a giant like belt, and there's just a ton of just pieces of machinery on her because she just wants to create things so she doesn't have to work. It's hilarious.
That is amazing.
Laelia, the Blade Reforged. Super cool idea, super cool artwork. She is a spirit statue, and most spirit statues are obviously they're created and they come up and they do their thing. Well, she was super upset to be dead. She didn't know she was dead, and so she wakes up and she's super upset, and she wishes she could kill all the soldiers that killed her, and she's like, you know what? I'm gonna start a dueling club. And so it runs a dueling club as a spirit. She's obviously not a member of the faculty or a student. She's just a being that exists on campus that works with magical combat, training students in her ancient arts.
So she's like a tutor.
Yes. And her ability is she exiles the top card so that you can draw and you can play it for the turn. So she's teaching you.
That's cool.
The last member of the red-white crew is Alibou, the Ancient Witness. Now, I really wish I had a deck for Alibou. You have a deck for Alibou, and it's really cool. So this is
Kirkadine?
Yeah.
So well.
This is a red-white golem.
Go.
It's almost my spirit animal. So the whole idea is that they were digging around and they find an ancient war golem in the ruins of Cardoon. And then it came to life and did not kill them, despite being a war golem. Instead, it started telling them what they were wrong about the Blood Age, specifically combat techniques. And so imagine a C-3PO that knows how to kill a person. That's what this is. It's C-3PO. And it has pledged to defend the university if anything ever happens.
That's so cool.
It's really cool.
Lorehold is probably one of the coolest colleges.
I love Lorehold. And like I said, if I didn't already if Silvercool was not my jam, I would be Lorehold for sure, hands down, because it just has so many cool aspects to it. It's basically it's the social studies area. It's social studies. It's about history. It's about sociology.
If history was this cool in actual school, I wouldn't have had to take it 3 times.
You just like Mr. Lim. And so yeah, that was the red-white college of Lorehold, the only college that can stand a chance against Silverquill. Joe, any closing statements?
Thank you guys so much for watching. Go ahead and leave a like and let us know your favorite historical figure, magical and regular. And let us know who you'd make a statue of.
Ooh, that'd be cool. I would. Who would you do, Joe? Who would you make a statue of, just to see like how they were?
That's a tough one. I asked them to do it. I didn't ask me to do it.
Yeah. Okay? We'll also put ours in the comments. We'll think about it, and when this comes out, we'll put it in the comments as well.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time with our last college, the one I actually should be part of, but am not.